Hi, I'm Mark Perry with Colorado Dam Safety. Welcome to our tutorial for the guidelines for hydrological modeling and flood analysis. The tutorial videos are broken up by sections. So this is the first one. It covers sections 1 and 2, the introduction and background. So these are our new hydrology modeling guidelines, and we call it hydrology modeling and flood analysis. We incorporate we use the observed flood record to support modeling. But basically, these are the guidelines that cover rainfall runoff modeling for modeling probabilistic and deterministic floods to support hydrologic risk analysis of existing dams and to support hydrology modeling of inflow design floods for new design and construction projects. So these guidelines are the result of many years of effort, and they build on our other past efforts, starting with our regional extreme precipitation study that we did with New Mexico. So the Colorado and New Mexico REP study, where we updated probable maximum precipitation estimates, and we developed extreme precip frequency estimates, probabilistic rainfall estimates. And that allowed us to develop hydrologic risk analysis. So the next thing we did was developed methods for hydrologic hazard and hydrologic risk analysis. Pretty simple methods that can be used at state dam safety level. We also worked with Colorado State University in a multi-year effort to develop new rainfall runoff modeling methods that more accurately model floods in Colorado. So there had been, with the old modeling methods, there had been a general disconnect from observed flooding, especially as we see the regional variation across Colorado that wasn't captured by some of the old modeling methods. And that brings us to the last bullet, our kind of last effort that these guidelines build on is we recognize that there's a large amount of observed flood data, both extreme floods, extraordinary floods, paleo floods, that really needed to be recognized and incorporated into the modeling process in order to ensure that we're getting accurate and reasonable floods for dam safety purposes. And that includes the USGS Colorado Flood Database, a lot of the work by Bob Jarrett and continue with Mike Cohn, paleo flood studies, regional flood estimation methods like USGS Stream Stats, and then Bulletin 17C for flood frequency analysis. So the new guidelines do lay out a different approach, kind of a new way of thinking for us anyway, in that they incorporate the observed flood record or attempt to. We still rely primarily on rainfall runoff modeling to model these probabilistic floods and deterministic floods and design floods. We're using the rainfall runoff modeling. Like I said, we developed the REPS precip estimates. We spent a lot of money and effort on that to get good rainfall estimates, and we spent a lot of time and effort on developing the new rainfall runoff modeling methods. But as good, while we consider the REPS, rainfall, and the CSU modeling method, rainfall runoff modeling, to be best science, they still have a lot of assumptions. Rainfall runoff modeling is always going to have a lot of assumptions built into it. Just things like the rainfall, storm transposition limits, the runoff modeling. We're using coarse scale soil surveys to estimate basin-wide or sub-basin-wide hydrologic parameters, soil parameters, things like that. So what we do, the philosophy in these new guidelines is that the modeling and model parameterization is considered a starting point. We don't consider it to be accurate or the model to be accurate or give, say, reasonable results until it's checked against the flood record. So we have this great wealth of observed flood record in Colorado. Like I said, we have the Colorado Flood Database, we have stream stats, lots of stream gauges. We at the state engineer's office have, sometimes hundreds of years or 100 years of record for some dams, and we have records of reservoir stages, record pools, inflow floods, spillway floods. And so we can use all that to check our models and check magnitude of floods, flood type, storm type, seasonality, and only after we do those checks do we consider that the model, we can make the case that the model, rainfall runoff model, is giving reasonable results. And then along with the model, the reasonableness or accuracy of the model, we can also make a case for the confidence in the model results. So some dams and some basins are going to have a lot of observed flood record, a lot of records, paleo studies, flood studies, stream gauges, good records at a dam. And so we can make a case for strong confidence in the model results and in any conclusions, decisions that we're making based on that hydrologic risk analysis or what have you. Other basins just aren't going to have much information, and maybe all we have is stream stats or some kind of regional flood data, and that's okay. But then we recognize that there might be low confidence in those model results in our decision making. Okay, let's just break this down to the difference between the old school dam safety hydrology methods versus these our new methods in the guidelines for hydrological modeling and flood analysis. So we'll go kind of row by row and contrast, compare and contrast. So old school is mainly deterministic. We're mainly interested in the PMF. These new methods, our new guidelines, we have the probabilistic rainfall. We're interested in probabilistic floods in addition to the PMF. So that right off the bat, just having the probabilistic floods opens up a lot of new abilities for us. Next row, the old school, the emphasis was really on model parameter estimation. So there was, we went through and we painstakingly determined basin properties and then assigned textbook values for model parameters. And the new method, there's, while we have what we feel like is a really good modeling method, and it's been tested on actual floods, extreme floods in Colorado, and good parameter estimation methods have been developed, but we don't consider that the end all be all. That's a first step, and the great thing is we feel like it's fairly easy. So of course, it's a new method. Your first few times through this new color CSU modeling method is going to be it's going to be new. There's going to be a learning curve, but we feel confident that after you've done it a few times, you're going to find it's actually it's automated. It uses digital data sets, an ArcGIS toolbox to do the model parameter estimation. It's reproducible, and I think you're going to find that it's actually fairly quick and easy. So next row, in the old school method, there was little to no checking then of the model against the observed flood record. Our new guidelines, new methods, we do check the model results against as many, hopefully multiple sources of observed flood data to make the case that the models give an accurate results. So old school, the model accuracy was judged pretty much against agreement with previous models. So this tended to produce circular logic. People had done this a lot. We all kind of knew what the correct answer should be, or what we thought were conservative floods for dam safety purposes, but there may not have been any real basis in reality. So now New methods, our new guidelines for hydrology modeling and flood analysis, we only consider the model to be accurate after we've been able to check it and calibrate it against the observed flood record. Old school method, I think the old school philosophy was that these large floods, particularly, again, focusing on deterministic PMF, these large floods were largely unknowable. They were just beyond the realm of human experience. And new school, our new methods, what we see is in these probabilistic floods, and even up to PMF, we using multiple sources of data, paleo floods, flood envelope curves, extreme, extraordinary floods. There's actually a lot to be known about extreme floods, and especially regional variation in extreme floods in Colorado. We have a wealth of information. Old school, next row, there was generally a lack of observed flood data, particularly in the mountains. And now, 30 years on or whatever, we have, we're the beneficiaries of a lot of good flood data, and that's thanks to the efforts of a lot of people, USGS, Bureau of Reclamation, Bob Jarrett, Mike Cohn, John England have spent a lot of effort compiling this observed flood data over the past 30 years, so we can use that. And lastly, last row there, dams were generally, old school method, dams were generally on ungauged basins. Most of our dams are. So flood frequency analysis, stream gauge analysis was kind of discounted right off the bat. But now, new school method, our new guidelines for hydrology modeling flood analysis, what we recognize is we can still use a lot of that data. I mean, we have more stream gauges for one thing. We should certainly use the stream gauges that are there. But we can also, there are methods for transpositioning stream gauges, flood frequency curves, moving them around to hydrologically similar basins, scaling them. And also there's a lot of good regional methods. So USGS has developed stream stats, regional flood frequency estimation methods. We can also use Bulletin 17C to do regional flood frequency estimates. So there we have it, kind of old school versus new school, or new guidelines.